Oh, Nina, my Nina, our abortive trip is done. Your ship's been dashed against the rocks. We fought you and we won. The TV's near, the fake news I hear, the performance artists all a-whining. Though no one watches anymore, they still just keep opining. But Nina, 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 with your lips of ruby red, where on the deck lie all your dreams, fallen, cold and dead. Oh, Nina, my Nina, rise up and hear the bells, as people mock your TikTok vids, because they're dumb as hell. For you they laid the welcome mat, your fans they all were shouting, she's the finest expert in the world, of that there is no doubting. Hear, Nina, dear lady, those voices in your head, they're telling you that your career has fallen cold and dead. My Nina does not answer, her office lights are dark. Her censors do not prowl the web. Her tweets have lost their spark. Her ship lies wrecked upon the shoals, its voyage closed and done, while we the victors laugh and cheer, content that the battle is won. Exult, deplorables, and ring, O bells, while we, just like we said, say good damn riddance to the DGB, 'cause we killed it cold and dead. Well, now that Walt Whitman's turning handsprings in his grave, Jim Eagle, hit the... Actually, don't hit the music. I think I'm not quite finished yet. I feel like we still haven't done Nina the courtesy of a proper send-off. And the only fitting way in which to do that, I think we'll all agree, is with a Disney show tune. So kick me one of them funky-ass beats. Nina's unemployed right now 'cause she was too ferocious. I'd like to say we took her down, but I'm not braggadocious. She shot herself right in the foot by being so atrocious. Her character has been exposed as thoroughly monstrous. Diddle 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 I, diddle 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 I. When Nina was a little girl, she had the strangest habit. Her friends would take their homework out and she would promptly grab it. Then she would pull a Sharpie out and thoroughly redact it. When there's a chance for censorship, our Nina has to have it. Hey! Jim Eagle, why don't you play something special in honor of our good friend Ms. Jankowitz to show her there are no hard feelings and that we wish her nothing but the best of luck in her future. Atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where it doesn't matter if the school books are censored because the kids are too busy learning how to slay their enemies in battle. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. Welcome to the program. Good to be back. I am your eponymous host and humble servant. And yes, I didn't quite get my wish with Nina and the DGB. I said I wanted her gone inside the Scaramucci limit of 10 days, and in the actual event, it took 20. But make no mistake, this is a good win. We should damn well enjoy it. High fives all around, beers are on the host, and it's also a crucially important win, I would submit. It would be easy to say, as many people are saying, that Nina was sunk by her own dumbassery, by her crazily fascist remarks on television, by her status as a functionary for the Democrat Party, who's not very good at hiding it, by her inexplicable failure to scrub her social media before being publicly rolled out in this role, by her impossibly cringy Disney song parodies, by her stated desire to engage in pedophilic necrophilia with the corpse of Harry Potter, there's a sentence I never imagined saying out loud, or by some combination of all those things. And to some extent, sure, that's true. They trotted out this wild-eyed lunatic internet troll. They told us she's going to be the nice lady who helps us poor benighted bumpkins out in flyover country to differentiate between truth and falsehood. They gave her a big, fancy public rollout, sent her around to do the cable news interview circuit. And it was quickly apparent that she was totally unprepared and not qualified to do much of anything except to settle disputes between the 26 cats she goes home to alone every night. So yes, just by virtue of the person they tried to install in this role, the thing was obviously going to go tits up in some sort of fiery train wreck at some point, but it would not have happened in under 3 weeks. And it would not have ended in such deliciously embarrassing fashion without the American people saying, nope, We are not going to tolerate this crap, not even one little bit. What the hell country do you think this is, you monstrous evil bastards? I said it was important that we meet this with force and make the government back down and do it in short order, which is why I imposed the Scaramucci limit. We just cannot let them get this casual about assaulting our most basic civil rights, to where they are so drunk on their own hubris that they actually try to roll out a freaking Ministry of Truth that operates under the auspices of the Homeland Security Department, which just makes it sound all the more odious and Orwellian. Frankly, I was pretty well convinced, and I think I mentioned it at the time, that the writing was on the wall for Nina when she performed so badly during her day of interviews on Thursday that her boss, the seditionist criminal Alejandro Mayorkas, had to work all day on Sunday following her around all the same TV studios, cleaning up her mess like a dutiful dog owner with a poop bag in each hand. When you combine that with the level of widespread public outrage which we built and sustained to where it could not be ignored, Nina's fate was probably sealed by the following Monday morning. It probably didn't fill her with a great degree of confidence when she was watching on TV and hearing her boss be all, Nina who? I've never heard of her. People tell me she's a well-respected expert, though, in something or other. What a wonderful vote of confidence to get. I would call it the kiss of death, but I wouldn't want to create any mental image involving someone getting a kiss from the seditionist criminal Mayorkas, whom I'm increasingly convinced is actually a green reptile alien who's wearing a not very convincing skin suit, specifically a green reptile alien who really passionately hates the United States and its people. But he also sort of gave the game away at the same time. I mean, the game about the disinformation board, not the game about being a secret alien reptile. When he began referring in all these interviews to the Disinformation Governance Board being, it's just a working group. Okay, pal. So it's just a working group. Just some folks spitballing ideas around the office. And yet, you gave it the name of Disinformation Governance Board. Now, go ahead and call me pedantic. It won't be the first time. But when you put the word governance in the name of an organ of the federal government, one might reasonably draw the inference that you're intending for your governance board to be engaged in some form of, I don't know, governance? There is nothing about an ominous, ostentatious name like Disinformation Governance Board that suggests this is just going to be some little interagency working group. If you were planning the thing as a working group, you might have called it the Disinformation Working Group. But you didn't call it that. You called it a governance board. Have you ever heard of a governing board that didn't wield executive power? Whether it was in a homeowners association or a school district or a frickin' Tiddlywinks club? Because I myself have not. So you are busted, Mayorkas. I mean, about the true original intent of the governance board, and not about secretly being a 6-foot-tall anthropomorphic lizard. But I'm working on that one. The journalisming never stops here at Castle Curmudgeon. One day I will be known as the intrepid investigative reporter who blew the lid off of Lizardgate, and you will all tell your grandkids that you knew me back when I was just a ruggedly handsome slab of masculine vigor with a criminally underrated podcast. But before we leave this topic in the rearview and consign Nina Jankowicz and her band of merry redactors to being the fun little obscure footnotes in American history that they so richly deserve to be, I have to remark just a bit more on something she kept saying, and she kept saying it very insistently throughout her entire day of media interviews on the Thursday after she was introduced as America's intellectual hall monitor. She kept assuring the interviewers, one after the other, that it's completely unfounded and improper to accuse her of being an operative for the Democrat Party, who spends most of her life talking up that day's Democrat Party talking points on various social media platforms, because any reasonably sane person should be able to look at Nina's online output and say, well, yeah, duh, obviously she's working for the Democrats. But think about this. And this is something we've talked about before, how we have lots of radical leftists now, especially in the younger adult age group, who have no idea they are radical leftists. Nina Jankowicz is 33 years old, born in 1989, so depending on what state you grew up in, a kid that age who started school in the mid-90s may never have known a world where the primary schools and the secondary schools and the colleges and the universities were not all safely in the clutches of the leftist hive mind. Hell, I finished school in the early 90s, and in California things were already well on their way to going full woke-tard. All three of my kids went to woke-tarded California public schools, but they had the benefit of parents who provided a counterpoint to the woke-tardery. But kids who don't have that, when they spend their lives going to woke schools with woke teachers and woke administrators, and then they matriculate to some woke university, and their social interactions, the information to which they're exposed, is determined almost entirely by the whims of some social media algorithm, it is perfectly conceivable, predictable even, that a young person could arrive in their early 30s, the age Ms. Jankowicz is right now, believing that a fringe radical leftist worldview is actually middle-of-the-road centrism. And I'll tell you who really notices this stuff is people who are longtime mainstream Democrats. People who are decidedly left of center, but if they refuse to go along with the crazy whims of the wokesters, even just one time, even just a little bit, all of a sudden they are being called right-wing. Bill Maher is routinely called right-wing now. Bill freaking Maher. Just because he thinks, maybe it's a good thing that there are dividing lines between men and women. Maybe it's not the best thing to perform destructive cosmetic surgery on the sex organs of minor children, which are things that nearly every sane person on the planet agrees with, but the high priests of the woke religion will not brook any deviation from 100% rigid ideological purity. So congratulations, Bill Maher. Welcome to the right wing. Just because you committed the sin of wondering out loud why we condemn child genital mutilation when it's done in Islamic countries for religious reasons, but we celebrate it in this country when it's done for purposes of vanity and narcissism. And there's another brand new member of the evil right-winger club, Mr. Elon Musk himself, the erstwhile new owner of Twitter in waiting, which I guess is a confusing way of putting it, but hey, these are confusing times. He was already walking a thin line in terms of his street cred with the left, since saying you like free speech is currently the best way of getting yourself disowned by the Democrats, or worse yet, if you say you like free speech and gun ownership rights. Basically, if you express any affection for either of the first two amendments in the Bill of Rights, or if you don't kneel in contemptuous disgust each time you see the U.S. flag, you're pretty much precluded from being a Democrat voter in good standing, which it sounds crazy to say out loud, but as a practical matter, it couldn't be any more true. So Elon Musk tweeted out a couple days ago that he's going to stop voting Democrat and start voting Republican. And he very quickly explained his rationale, and I thought his explanation was absolutely fascinating because it sounded so dumb and ignorant, just like something you would hear from any uninformed, barely sentient bumper sticker voter. He says, well, I used to always vote for the Democrats because they were the kindness party. In other words, the richest man in the history of the world and the owner of the greatest visionary mind of this century, he's always voted for the Democrats because the things they said made him feel the feelings he wanted to feel. Just like every dumbass simpleton rube who shows up every election and votes a straight party line ticket, Elon Musk, of all people, he used to be a feelings and emotions voter. And that is the absolute worst type of voter. Voters like that are the reason why I say so often that high voter turnout is not a desirable thing. For the higher the turnout, the bigger the number of people who are voting based on yard signs and bumper stickers and, oh, I like that guy better than that guy. If we only had 20% voter turnout, but a well-informed electorate, I think we would benefit immeasurably from it. Our leaders, at any rate, would be nowhere near as dull, as unexceptional, and cripplingly incompetent as they currently are. Elon Musk is a couple years older than me, I think, so he's been a voter in this country for his whole adult life. His first election would have been 1992, so he's been voting Democrat for 8 presidential election cycles. And it took him 30 damn years before he had seen enough. Until he had grown sufficiently tired of being smacked across the face with the long cock of wokeness, until he'd been forced to move both his companies out of California before he was willing to say, I think I'd rather live in a results-oriented world than a feelings-oriented world. I think I no longer want to support a party that tries to wreck my businesses and portrays me as a villain just because I've done well for myself. So I've decided I'm going to start voting Republican. And personally, I am at a loss to understand how someone could be so astute and so analytically sound in every other area of his life, and be so gullible and credulous as a voter, but obviously it does happen. In Elon Musk's case, I tend to think he's just a person who's not all that interested in politics, which stands to reason because when your life's work is being spent trying to answer questions like, how can we have a self-sustaining colony on Mars in under 50 years? You're not going to be devoting a lot of mental energy to the everyday political squabbles that everybody forgets about within 48 hours anyway. It shouldn't be all that big a deal, really. Well, just because one guy says he's switching his vote to the other party, just like a guy buying a website shouldn't be all that big a deal. But at this point, with all this talk about free speech and voting for the GOP, Mr. Musk has launched himself so far up the leftist rage mob target list that he's threatening to overtake the devil incarnate himself, Tucker Carlson, for the top spot on the charts. And so, since they are masters of subtlety and understatement to the very last, within a mere 18 hours of Musk saying he's now a Republican voter, the fake news media had managed to produce some former employee of his claiming he sexually propositioned her on an airplane 6 years ago. And so, gosh, pump the brakes, guys. This changes everything. I can believe a hell of a lot. But, my God, the idea that a male billionaire would engage in sexually boorish behavior, that is a lot to wrap one's head around. That is just about the most scandalous thing I've ever heard, in fact. And Musk, this was great. He even called their shot for him. He signed off the aforementioned tweet by saying, okay, now watch the campaign of personal destruction begin. Which it, of course, duly did. And they had actually tried to Me Too him before even 24 hours had elapsed. And who gives a damn anyway? Democrats and media, but I repeat myself. Suppose he really did proposition the woman and behave as boorishly as is alleged. What does it change? How does it make the political calculus any more favorable to your side? Because it looks a whole hell of a lot like you guys are just out of ideas and going through the motions at this point. Painting by numbers. All right, this guy said something we don't like, so should we frame him as a sex pervert or a racist or both? Yeah, I don't know. Let's try sex pervert first and then we'll try racist. We'll save the easiest one for last because, I mean, he is a white dude from South Africa, after all. But Musk and the aforementioned Bill Maher, among a growing cohort of others, they are emblematic of a much bigger phenomenon, and it ain't good for the Democrats. Because if you're not comfortably to the left of Ho Chi Minh, they do not want your vote. If you're a religious person, they don't want your vote. If you have a problem with your female children competing against male athletes on the athletic field, or in the restroom for that matter, they don't want your vote. And if you reject the notion that all 75 million Donald Trump voters are card-carrying white supremacists, then they really, really, really don't want your vote. And speaking of that, is there anything more awkward than Joe Biden, of all people, attempting to play the role of racial unifier, like he's got so much moral authority in that area? Just for fun, let's do a quick rundown of Joe's credentials as a racial progressive. He began his career as a Southern segregationist senator who palled around with other segregationist senators. He said his constituents don't want their kids going to school in a racial jungle. He subjected the second ever black Supreme Court nominee to 5 full days of barely veiled racist taunts and abuse, to the point where Judge Thomas, as he was then, described the proceedings as a high-tech lynching for uppity blacks who deigned to think for themselves. He expressed wonderment that Barack Obama, his own future running mate, could be clean, articulate, nice-looking, and also a black guy. He said poor kids are just as bright and talented as white kids. He accused a black journalist of being a coke junkie for asking a difficult question. He declared that if you don't vote for him, you ain't black. That's just a small sampling, of course. We could go on for quite some time. So there you have it. Joe Biden, racial healer and unifier, champion of the poor downtrodden black man. Just don't pay any attention to the fact that this man has made more racially offensive statements in public than any other figure in national politics in the last half century. Or that he's opened the borders and wrecked the economy. Or that he poops and farts on world leaders. Allegedly. And we'll leave it there for tonight. Thank you very much indeed for watching. Have a delightful, edifying weekend. I will see you Monday. Full slate of episodes next week. Until next time, do not comply. Get off my lawn.